Please take me before the sun rises. I'll cook, clean, I won't complain," said the mail-order bride. Welcome to Kind Soul Stories, where every story touches your heart and leaves a lasting memory. Before we begin, a gentle reminder. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment to support our channel and help these stories reach more kind souls like you. And yes, make sure to watch this video till the end so you don't miss a single moment of today's emotional journey. Welcome, friends. Now let's begin today's story. Scene 1. Before the dawn, approx. 400 words. The night was heavy with silence, as if the world itself was holding its breath. A single lantern flickered in the corner of a small wooden room, casting long shadows on the cracked walls. The smell of ink and old paper lingered in the air, for the young woman had spent hours writing her last letter. Her fingers trembled as she folded the paper neatly, pressing it against her chest for a brief moment, perhaps the last warmth she would ever give to her own words. Her name was Amina, a girl of 19, fragile yet unbroken. The distant call of a rooster reminded her that dawn was only moments away. For Amina, dawn was not a promise, it was a deadline. "Please, before the sun rises," she whispered to herself, her voice almost breaking. "Take me away before the world decides my fate for me." The room was bare, save for a small wooden trunk at the foot of her bed. Inside lay only a few belongings, a folded dress, a scarf, and a prayer book. She wasn't leaving much behind, but her heart weighed heavy with the memories of her mother's voice, her father's silence, and the unspoken truth that she was being sold, packaged like a parcel, delivered across the sea. The term mail-order bride sounded foreign, but to her it was survival. The man who would receive her letter lived thousands of miles away, across oceans she had never seen. She knew nothing of his face, his voice, or his heart. All she had was her promise. "I will cook, I will clean, I will not complain." The night breeze slipped in through the broken window, carrying with it the scent of the village fires dying out. Amina wrapped her scarf around her shoulders, her eyes fixed on the horizon. Any moment now, the stars would give way to the pale light of morning. And with the morning came her greatest fear. Would she still be here, trapped? Or would someone truly come as promised? Before the first rays of sunlight touched the earth, her heart raced. Every second mattered. The world was asleep, but for Amina, the night was alive with questions. And somewhere in that silence, footsteps approached. The sound was faint at first, almost like the whisper of dry leaves brushing against the ground. Amina froze, her breath caught in her throat. For a moment, she thought it was her imagination, born from fear and sleeplessness. But then the sound grew clearer, steady, heavy. Footsteps. Her pulse quickened. Who could it be at this hour? Her father never rose before sunrise, and her mother's health was too frail to move about in the dark. No villager dared to wander at this time of night. That left only one possibility. Amina's trembling hands clutched the edge of her scarf tighter, her knuckles white. The wooden door creaked. A shadow stretched across the threshold. She held her breath, bracing herself for the unknown. "Amina," a hushed voice called. Her heart skipped a beat. It was not the voice of her father, nor the stern tone of the village elders. This voice was softer, rushed, almost urgent. She stepped closer, the lantern's light illuminating a familiar figure. It was Karim, the only friend she had trusted since childhood. His eyes darted nervously, scanning the room, then settling on her. "You must be ready," he whispered, his voice trembling as though he too carried the weight of her fate. "The man has sent word. His ship is waiting by the harbor. If you want to leave, it must be now." Before the sun rises, her knees weakened, but her spirit rose. This was the moment, the choice between staying chained to a life of silence or stepping into an uncertain freedom. 1,000 fears tugged at her heart. What if the man was cruel? What if she became nothing more than a servant in a foreign land? But another voice inside her whispered louder. What if this was the only chance she'd ever get to choose her own path? She glanced at her trunk, small and pitiful, containing the sum of her life's belongings. For a second, she hesitated. Then she looked at Karim, whose eyes pleaded with her to hurry. "Will you help me?" she asked, her voice cracking. Karim nodded firmly. "Always." The air grew colder as the first pale glow of dawn brushed against the horizon. Time was slipping through her fingers. Amina blew out the lantern, plunging the room into near darkness. With her trunk in hand and her heart pounding against her chest, she took her first step toward the door, toward the unknown, toward the promise she had whispered in her letter. And as she crossed the threshold, she whispered once more to herself, "Please, before the sun rises, let this be my new beginning." The footsteps of two souls now echoed into the night, hers trembling with fear, his firm with determination. The journey had begun. The night clung to the world like a secret, but the horizon had already begun to blush with pale streaks of gray. Amina and Karim moved quickly through the narrow dirt paths of the village, her trunk pressed against her chest, her scarf pulled low over her face. Every sound, a dog's distant bark, the creak of bamboo fences, the whisper of wind, felt like an alarm ready to betray their escape. Her feet were bare against the cold ground, each step heavy with fear. She whispered prayers beneath her breath, her lips dry. Karim walked just ahead, glancing back every few seconds to make sure she was still there. When they reached the edge of the village, the smell of salt and sea hit her, sharp and cold, carrying with it a strange freedom. The harbor was not far now. "Almost there," Karim whispered, his voice low but firm. As they neared the shore, the world widened. The vast stretch of ocean glimmered faintly under the fading stars. Wooden ships swayed in the dark waters, their masts tall and silent like watchful giants. And among them was one ship lit faintly by a lantern on its deck. A figure stood there, waiting. Amina's heart stuttered. Was this him? The man who had promised her a life across the sea? Her steps slowed. Doubt crawled over her skin. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times while writing her letter. But now that it was here, the weight of it nearly crushed her. Karim noticed her hesitation. He placed a hand on her shoulder. "Amina, listen to me. You have two choices. Stay here and let them decide your fate, or take this step and decide for yourself." She looked into his eyes. For the first time, she saw the faint glimmer of tears in them. Karim was her childhood companion, the boy who once caught fireflies with her, the friend who shielded her when others mocked her silence. And now he was the one delivering her to a stranger. Her lips trembled. "What if he is cruel? What if I regret everything?" Karim's voice steadied. "Then at least it will be your choice, not theirs." That truth struck her harder than the chill of the sea breeze. With trembling legs, she stepped forward again. The figure on the ship moved closer, his lantern swaying. Amina could now make out the shape of a tall man, his features hidden in the dim light. He raised a hand, signaling. A wooden plank extended from the ship to the dock. Karim squeezed her hand once, a silent goodbye. "Be brave, Amina." Her chest tightened. She wanted to cry, to beg him not to let go. But the first rays of dawn kissed the horizon, reminding her the time had come. With a deep breath, she clutched her trunk tighter and stepped onto the plank. Each step echoed in her heart like a drumbeat. When she reached the deck, the man's shadow loomed over her. She dared not lift her eyes. Behind her, Karim's figure blurred in the mist of the harbor. Ahead of her, the vast ocean stretched endlessly, and just as the ship's anchor lifted from the water, sealing her fate, Ami. The creaking of wood and the groan of ropes filled the air as the ship pushed itself away from the shore. The harbor grew smaller and smaller, swallowed by the mist. Amina stood frozen near the deck, her trunk by her feet, her scarf fluttering in the cold wind. She dared not look back. She knew if she did, her heart would break at the sight of Karim fading into the distance. The man with the lantern moved closer. At last his features emerged from the shadows. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his coat heavy against the sea breeze. His face was not cruel, but neither was it kind. It was unreadable, carved with lines of hardship. His eyes, dark and steady, studied her in silence. "You are Amina?" he asked, his voice deep and measured. Her throat tightened. She managed only a nod. He set the lantern down, folding his arms. "You kept your promise. You came before the sun rose." A pause. Then, almost coldly, "From now on, your life will be very different. You will cook, you will clean, and if you are loyal, you will be cared for. Do you understand?" The words stung, though she had written them herself in her letter. Still, hearing them aloud from the mouth of this stranger was like swallowing stones. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling. The man's gaze lingered on her a moment longer before he turned toward the crew. "Get her settled below deck," he ordered. Two sailors appeared, their boots thudding against the wet wood, ready to carry her trunk. Amina followed hesitantly, clutching her scarf, her mind spinning. Was this her future? To be a servant? A wife? A stranger in a land that was not her own? She wanted to cry out, to ask 100 questions. But the sea roared louder than her courage. As she descended the narrow wooden stairs into the dim belly of the ship, her thoughts echoed louder than the waves. Have I saved myself, or have I thrown myself into another prison? The small cabin given to her was bare. Just a cot, a rough blanket, and a tiny round window that looked out onto the restless sea. She sat on the cot, hugging her knees to her chest, fighting the tears that threatened to spill. Somewhere above her, the man barked orders at the crew. His voice was strong, commanding. It carried a weight that told her he was used to being obeyed. She lay back on the cot, staring at the wooden ceiling. The ship rocked, her heart with it. The journey had begun, and with it, the story of her new life. But deep inside, one question burned brighter than all the others. Who truly was this man? A savior, or a stranger who held the key to another cage? The sea did not answer. Only the wind whispered through the cracks of the ship, carrying her into the unknown. Oh, dear friends, if you are still watching, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment. Your support helps us bring more heart-touching stories to life on Kind Soul Stories.